They didn't use tanks. They didn't fire a single shot. And yet, China managed to take an entire city right under the world's nose. While global headlines were busy chasing scandals and stock markets, something far more sinister was unfolding in Hong Kong. A slow-motion takeover wrapped in law books, televised speeches, and the illusion of order. This wasn't war in the traditional sense. It was something much colder and smarter. What if I told you that one of the most vibrant, democratic cities on Earth was quietly stripped of its freedom, while global powers stood by and said nothing? That you were watching it happen and didn't even realize it? Because this isn't just a Hong Kong story. It's a blueprint, and what worked there might work anywhere. But to see it clearly, you have to understand every hidden move. This video doesn't just reveal how it happened. It shows why it worked and what no one dares to admit. If you've ever wondered how power operates in silence and how truth gets buried beneath policy, then this is the kind of story that changes how you see the world. Welcome to the real game behind diplomacy, investment, and obedience. You're about to witness how a city was stolen, one law at a time. It all started like a spark, one bill, one decision, one moment that lit the fire. What seemed like just another political move turned into an eruption of protests that would redefine the future of democracy in Hong Kong. As the people took to the streets, umbrellas in hand and courage in heart, they weren't just resisting a law. They were resisting suppression. They knew what was at stake: their autonomy, their identity, and the promises they'd been told would last until 2047. But Beijing had other plans. By 2019, nearly 2 million people were marching, chanting, holding the line against what they saw as creeping authoritarianism. These weren't just youthful idealists. They were teachers, lawyers, artists, entire families demanding the right to exist without fear. And when the proposed extradition bill threatened to drag citizens into mainland China's opaque judicial system, it became the tipping point. The city pulsed with energy, as if its very soul were being negotiated in broad daylight. It was less a protest and more a declaration: we will not be silent. As police fired rubber bullets and deployed tear gas, protesters responded with homemade shields and laser pointers. David meeting Goliath with nothing but wit and will. But while the world watched in awe, another force watched from the shadows. The weight of surveillance intensified. Drones above, cameras below, and faces tracked in real time. It wasn't just a fight in the streets, it was digital warfare. And still, people showed up, because when autonomy slips through your fingers, you don't let go, you hold on tighter. Back-end index pointing right. If you're the kind of person who values freedom and truth, make sure to like this video and subscribe. You're going to want to see what happens next. The erosion of Hong Kong's democracy didn't happen overnight. It was engineered, inch by inch, behind closed doors and beneath layers of legal fog. Elections once celebrated as free and fair became carefully managed performances. Independent candidates found themselves disqualified, jailed, or silenced by court orders. Figures like Joshua Wong and Jimmy Lai weren't just critics. They were symbols, and symbols are dangerous to those who fear dissent. The playbook? Legal suppression masked as national security. Every move had a chilling purpose. Laws were introduced not to protect, but to prosecute. Not to ensure justice, but to eliminate opposition. The national security law became a sweeping net, criminalizing speech, protest, and even opinion. Meanwhile, international observers issued statements, strong words, but no real action. Beijing understood the art of timing. Move fast, act decisively, and the world will blink too slow to respond. It's terrifying how democracy can be undone using the very systems meant to protect it. Courts became tools of control. Police transformed into enforcers of ideology. And as voices disappeared, the silence grew louder. That silence wasn't peace, it was fear. And still, what happened next wasn't just about politics. It was about money. Hong Kong's autonomy wasn't preserved out of moral obligation. It was profitable. For decades, the city served as a financial gateway between the West and mainland China. Over 70% of China's foreign direct investment in 2023 passed through Hong Kong's channels. Why? Because it had what Beijing didn't: a respected legal framework, convertible currency, and a reputation for transparency. Those weren't just economic perks, they were geopolitical leverage. But as the protests intensified, so did Beijing's risk calculations. They knew that tampering with Hong Kong's democracy could rattle investor confidence. Yet the payoff of full control was too tempting. Behind closed doors, trade-offs were weighed: maintain financial flow or secure political dominance. They chose the latter. Ironically, the very success that made Hong Kong valuable also made it vulnerable. Investors started looking elsewhere. Firms relocated. The city's stock as a global hub began to erode, not just from economics, but from fear. Fear of surveillance, censorship, and sudden legal shifts. And while some nations condemned the moves, none could afford to lose China's market. That gave Beijing space to act, and the tools to reshape the rules even further. Back-end index pointing right. If you're enjoying this breakdown and want to stay ahead of global power shifts, hit that subscribe button. We're just scratching the surface here. Beijing didn't need tanks to dismantle democracy, just lawyers, committees, and ink. The manipulation of Hong Kong's basic law was meticulous, turning the rule of law into a weapon. The election committee, once a formality, became a control mechanism. By adjusting who could vote and who could run, they ensured that only loyalists remained on the ballot. It looked like democracy, but it was democracy in costume. The brilliance of the strategy lay in its subtlety. No abrupt changes, just quiet edits, legal tweaks, and new interpretations. Beijing framed its moves as necessary for stability and within their rights, citing the need for national security. Meanwhile, international law experts called foul, but without enforcement power, their words echoed into the void. The city's political diversity wasn't defeated, it was deleted. And this wasn't just about elections. It was about narrative, identity, and rewriting the idea of what Hong Kong could be. Control became cultural. History books changed. Newsrooms emptied. And as voices vanished, Beijing's grip only tightened. But to truly understand the betrayal, we have to go back to the very promises made in 1997. When Britain handed Hong Kong back to China in 1997, a promise was carved into history. One country, two systems. It was more than an agreement. It was a symbol of trust. For 50 years, China pledged to preserve autonomy, free speech, and judicial independence. The world believed it. But belief doesn't hold power, control does. And Beijing was playing the long game. As early as the mid-2000s, small erosions began. Textbooks revised. Judges replaced. Dissidents warned that these weren't isolated events. They were rehearsals. Still, few listened. After all, the economy was booming and business flowed. The city's golden age, built on those freedoms, distracted many from the creeping surveillance and suppression. By the time the alarm bells rang, they were already surrounded. The betrayal wasn't just of a document. It was of a generation that believed in it. Many grew up thinking they had time, that 2047 was far away. But the erosion came early, swift, and unapologetic. And when that generation stood up to defend their future, the crackdown came even harder, especially after they dared to challenge the system at the ballot box. The 2019 elections were a revelation. Pro-democracy candidates swept the board, winning nearly 90% of local council seats. It was a public message louder than any chant. The people wanted their voice back. But Beijing didn't respond with dialogue. They responded with domination. Within months, the national security law dropped like a hammer, reshaping the legal landscape overnight. This law criminalized everything from slogans to songs. Suddenly, holding a sign became an act of rebellion. Candidates who once won by landslide were banned from running again, labeled unpatriotic. Some fled, others vanished. The definition of national security grew so broad it swallowed the concept of freedom whole. Protests turned quiet, not because the fight was over, but because fear had taken the stage. And so, the city changed. Surveillance increased. Arrests became routine. Schools taught obedience instead of debate. The system didn't just silence opposition, it rewired the entire environment to discourage it. But as the local battle intensified, the global spotlight began to shift. And China's next move would be even bolder. China knew that silencing a city would raise eyebrows abroad, so it rewrote the story. State media painted protests as riots and dissidents as foreign puppets. The narrative was simple. This wasn't about democracy, it was about stability. Meanwhile, Beijing sanctioned U.S. lawmakers who criticized them, fueling a new kind of Cold War. Not of bombs, but of perception. As tension with the West deepened, the trade war escalated. Tariffs, tech bans, and diplomatic jabs became routine. But beneath all that noise, Hong Kong's fall from grace was nearly complete. Once a proud financial hub, it began to lose relevance. Investors feared political volatility. Companies left. The city that once connected China to the world now symbolized the risks of that connection. And yet, the story's not over. This isn't just about Hong Kong. It's about a strategy that could be replicated anywhere. A slow erosion of freedom, masked as order. The world may have watched quietly this time, but will it stay silent again? Now that you've seen how it all unfolded, tell me, how many people in your circle actually know the full story behind Hong Kong? Not the headlines, not the filtered summaries, but the deeper layers, the legal maneuvers, the financial bait, the betrayal dressed up as policy. This isn't just information, it's insight. And insight separates the observers from the truly powerful. Most people will never dig this deep. They'll scroll past, distracted by noise. But you just accessed a level of understanding that only a select few ever reach. And that matters. Because it's not just about what happened to Hong Kong. It's about what could happen next to any society that lets its guard down, including your own, especially your own. So ask yourself, what other truths are hiding behind silence? What else don't we see until it's too late? If you want to keep sharpening your mind, questioning what others accept blindly, and uncovering the stories that actually shape the world, then you're exactly the kind of person this channel was made for. Backend index pointing right, subscribe, turn on notifications, and keep learning. Because this was just one truth. There are millions more waiting.